What's up, everybody? My name is Damon Garcia, and on this channel we usually talk about perspectives from a Christian left view and also essentials for the future of faith. And in this video I want to talk about a more healthier understanding of the concept of hell post-evangelicalism and even transcends all of Christianity. So let's get into it. Okay, what's up? So for this video, I had to bring along my friend Taylor. What's up, Taylor?
What's up, Damon? Living the dream.
Living the dream. And you're also on Instagram before we get into anything?
I am at New Transcendentalist.
And I'm at Who is Damon. And we actually met through Instagram.
We did.
And didn't even realize that we actually lived close to each other.
Super
and
cool.
So connect with people. And we were having a conversation, and many conversations, talking about evangelicalism and then progressive Christianity and understanding hell a little bit differently. Because so many people, as they're moving beyond evangelicalism, realize, what is the obvious to many biblical scholars, that this concept of a bunch of people after they die being sent to a literal hell to be punished forever because they didn't accept Jesus, that's a gross misinterpretation of the scriptures. There's a few times it mentions hell, but it's actually talking about something different, which is what we're going to get into later. But when people realize that and then actually read all the verses about Jesus reconciling, restoring, and renewing all things and all people, they realize how much it makes sense with the entire narrative of the Bible, and then they move to a sort of universalist position, which is the idea that everyone is saved, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter who you worship. But this can get a little bit tricky when you start to get into some leftist politics and you start to really look around at real evils in the world. And we realize, actually, first of all, when the concept of hell first started being talked about, it was really from the Greeks' influence onto Jews, and really a response to martyrdom, seeing all these people being killed for their faith and feeling like there's no way this is it. This is so messed up that there has to be some sort of reward for these people being killed for their faith, and there must be some sort of punishment for the people killing them. And so when we also look at the ways that hell is mentioned in the Bible, we see that it's not talking about what some evangelicals have taught, just about a teenager that sleeps with his girlfriend, a guy that likes to smoke weed, a girl that likes to say cuss words. It's not talking about those types of, it's talking about a very different type of actions and activity that lead to some sort of punishment. So we're having a conversation, and you told me that you're not a universalist.
Not a universalist, no. I mean, obviously there's like lots of development that's happened in my brain and stuff. It's been a massive process, but yeah, like back in the evangelical days, we used to say that liberals were soft. And like particularly this book here, I don't really recommend it. He's a very conservative guy. J. Gresham Machen, and his whole thing about Christianity, he's referring to a conservative version of Christianity, and he's saying it's not liberalism because liberalism is soft, and you know it's a sentimentalized religion. It's all feelings based, and I think when we do look at liberals, we're like, yeah, it is kind of feelings based. Like, oh, everything's fine, everything's gonna be cool. Don't like hate immigrants so much. You know, that's kind of like the liberal idea, and the liberal Christianity is not always too different from that kind of thing. But so I started to think about, because Jesus actually did have intense words for people. Like one of the ones that he said was, it would be better for you, scribes and Pharisees, to have a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown into the ocean than for one of you to lead these little ones astray.
Right.
I was like, that's intense. So there is some kind of something, punishment kind of a thing here, but what is it? Is it people are going to burn in hell forever? Because the Old Testament actually doesn't even include that. The Hebrew Bible, it's like not there. I mean, did God forget, or like what? He's like, oh, I forgot to tell you guys, if you don't do what I say, you're going to burn in hell for forever. You know? No, it didn't. Like, that didn't happen. But so Jesus used this word Gehenna. Gehenna meaning, it's Greek. Obviously, the New Testament's written in Greek. And Gehenna means the Hinnom Valley, which is a real place. And he, in particular, Matthew 25. We're going to read this one. So first of all, he gathers the nations. This is Matthew 25, 32. He says, 31, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him. So it's not individuals. It's not like the kid sleeping with his girlfriend in high school. It's not the, immigrant who's bringing weed over the border or something.
And then you get this long list of every bad word you said, every lie you've told, and it says this is what we're going to judge you off of. That's not what the Bible talks about.
This is Matthew 25, verse 32. All the nations will be gathered before him. He's not talking about individuals. It's a nation. He's going to put the sheep at his right hand, goats on his left. And the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, you welcomed me, an immigrant. I was naked, you gave me clothes. I was sick, you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." And the righteous will say, "When did we see you?" You're probably familiar with this, Matthew 25. "When did we see you?" And he says, the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." And then he'll say to the people on his left hand, the same thing, except they didn't take care of the hungry, thirsty, stranger, naked, sick, and in prison people. So if you want to get super technical, those are your groups of people. But basically, it's the orphan, it's the widow, it's the stranger.
Yeah.
A theme throughout the prophetic portions of the Old Testament, and then Jesus updates it for first century Judaism. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So, Martin Luther King, we can go to that quote right now as well. Martin Luther King also, not a universalist either. This is something it was like a couple weeks before he was killed. He says, "I come by here to say that America too is going to hell if she doesn't use her wealth. If America does not use her vast resources of wealth to end poverty and make it possible for all of God's children to have the basic necessities of life, she too will go to hell." So Jesus and Martin Luther King, they're not, it's not individual morality. Like when Jesus, the woman caught in adultery, he doesn't say, "Hey, you're caught in adultery, the law says you should be stoned." No, he says, no. To her, he says, "Go and sin no more," whatever. But to the powerful people, he says, "How about the person who here hasn't sinned? How about you throw the first stone? How about you do it? Because you all deserve this." So it's always directed towards the powerful and not towards the weak. The weak are already in. When Jesus has them in Matthew 5, when he has them gathered, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." There's no requirement. They didn't have to follow some individual morality or something. I mean, sure that some of these principles of individual morality are helpful for a community, but the thing is it's directed at power. And if the Egyptians don't take care of their slaves, this is the Torah, the Egyptian empire is going to fall apart. If the Babylonians don't take care of their slaves, again, which were the Jewish people, if they don't take care of them, that empire is also going to fall away, and it does. The Jews from the slaves under Egypt are the ones that carry through, and same the slaves under the Babylonians, the ones that carry through. The Romans also, the empire did not care about the least of these, and so therefore it fell apart. It went to hell. It went to the Hinnom Valley. Even in the first century, Jesus is speaking to the scribes and Pharisees, and he's saying, if you don't love the outcast, the stranger, those in prison, hungry, sick, if you don't love them, your society, your nation is going to go to the Hinnom Valley. And it did happen. It happened in AD 70. These people really did. Whatever Jews were left in Jerusalem in AD 70 were killed or were thrown into the Hinnom Valley. It really happened. So then I'm also like, I guess I'm a biblical literalist. Yeah. Because I'm like, I believe it really happened, just like Jesus said. And then you mentioned earlier, like, why do we think that Jesus was talking about an afterlife?
Yeah.
Because also it's not in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah. And also Jesus in John defines eternal life as a life in relationship with God. It's a type of life lived here and now.
Totally. So and I kind of, this idea came through like studying James Cone, Gustavo Gutierrez, Rosemary Ruther. These are liberation theologians, and they're basically saying, seeing the Bible through the lens of an oppressed person, through the lens of a poor person, and they see the U.S. empire through the lens of a black person. Mm-hmm. So James Cone, he says, when I see the cross as a poor black person, I see the lynching tree, because the U.S. empire did nothing for African Americans. It enslaved them, didn't care about them. And you see the Southern Baptists, the reason they're called Southern is because in 1845 they wanted to send slave-holding missionaries, and so their theology did not care about the African American. And I think that's why we see a massive decline in Christianity, is because, or in these forms of Christianity, these what Cornel West would call the Constantinian forms of Christianity, because they didn't care about the poor, the hungry, the sick, the stranger, those in prison, didn't care. And so as generations go by, they're going to the Hinnom Valley, they're going to hell. And so we see that happening. I think the Southern Baptists especially, they did apologize for the stance on slavery in 1995.
Yeah.
And it was like a very up and down thing for them at the civil rights time. A lot of them opposed civil rights. Most of them just didn't want to think about it. And so I think now you see they're paying for that, because they're going to they're getting sent to the Hinnom Valley because they didn't care back in the day. And so now, as we have an African American president, as we have African American positions of power, and those of us that care about African Americans, we start to see like, oh, you guys didn't care about them. So it's actually, the kingdom is coming. The day of judgment is coming for them. I mean, it's here now. I am the day of judgment for many of them. You know, like I quit that world because I cared about minorities, and I didn't want to be a part of something that didn't care about minorities.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, like, that thing is going to hell. It's Hinnom Valley. It's decreasing, and a new kingdom is coming. And so it's a real thing. It's not talking about individuals after they die.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. And like, I keep thinking, damn, I'm a freaking literalist, you know?
Yeah. Because we're not talking about something happening somewhere else in some other universe. Yeah. And also, it's also not talking about a singular event ever in the future that we're closer to, that people of the past weren't close to. Yeah. I think what makes the Bible so powerful and so relevant over all this time is that the prophecy in it is cyclical, not talking about something that's happening thousands of years after they wrote it. It's something that continues to happen. The day of judgment happens over and over and over whenever we see these empires fall and people pay for their sins of the oppression that they committed to all these people who are marginalized. That judgment happens again and again and again throughout history. Yeah.
So it's and then it's funny because, you know, we have this guy who's complaining about, oh, liberals are so soft. I'm like, yeah, they're soft. They didn't go too far. They didn't go far enough.
Yeah.
You know, and so like J. Gresham Machen, like, probably in the Hinnom Valley. You know, you could say the garbage dump of history, you know? Like Nazi Germany did this. We were talking about Rosa Luxemburg right before this, because Rosa Luxemburg sees it coming, and she says, listen, it's either socialism, a belief in all of society, or it's barbarism. And that was, I think she was killed in like 1922 or something.
Yeah, around there.
But then 1932, I think, is when Hitler gets power, and then they choose barbarism, you know? So rather than socialism, so Rosa Luxemburg is a prophet for what I'm...
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Yeah, I have a whole video series on that, by the way. If you look at my series going through socialism in the churches that Rosa Luxemburg wrote.
Nice.
A Jewish atheist who said, hey, you Christian preachers out there who are preaching against these workers, you should be the first ones to care about them.
Yeah. So yeah, she's saying socialism or barbarism, and then it happened, you know, and where's Nazi Germany today? It's in the garbage dump of history. It's in the Hinnom Valley.
Yeah.
Like exactly the same way. Like there was because injustice won't last, you know? Martin Luther King says the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And so unjust empires won't last. Martin Luther King, by the way, quoting Theodore Parker, New England transcendentalist, when he said that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's plug for my like intellectual awakening was through the New England transcendentalists, Emerson, Theodore Parker, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, these people. And that's why I named my Instagram New Transcendentalist.
Right. So I think a pattern that people go through, yeah.
It's a mug. Thoreau mug.
Thoreau mug. As people move beyond these conservative, evangelical, modern understandings of the afterlife, a pattern is to realize that it's a misinterpretation of what the Bible says. We don't know what's going to happen to us after we die. Then to come around and a kind of what Marcus Borg calls a post-critical naivety, to come around and realize, oh, but the concept of hell still matters. And it matters in this way. And it becomes so much more relevant when talking about this stuff this way, instead of a possible punishment you can have after you die, which when it's talked about that way, it makes this world a waiting room and there's nothing to do except to wait for that and make sure you don't do stuff that's too bad. That's not,
Not about individual morality.
Right. And so, So that's what I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to make this quick video to talk about this stuff. And let me know in the comments if you have thought about this stuff in a similar way, if you're deconstructing these ideas or reconstructing these ideas. This is very much a video of reconstruction after deconstruction, which is very, very, very important. So leave a comment, subscribe, like, go follow my dude on Instagram @NewTranscendentalist. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.